Okay, the agenda for today's meeting, we are going to start with the installation. I'm going to discuss about some basic commands what we have discussed in theoretical. Okay, in terms of installation has been concerned, we can install Git in both the operating systems. If you are working with the Windows, you can use Windows, as well as if your machine is equipped with Linux, or if you are working with any virtual machines, you can work with the Linux operating system also. So here, the command prompt that we will be getting is git bash prompt. Once you install, it will take you to a command prompt called the git bash prompt. Okay, the git bash prompt will be in this manner, like you will be having this git bash. Once you install a git, you will be taken to the git bash. It will be in Windows, it will be more or less similar to a Linux command prompt. Okay, so in this command prompt you can do all activity. So ls all the Linux command can be worked here itself. So this is the command prompt associated with this git bash. So where to install this git, how to look for the instruction, very simple thing. So go and check it, download a Git for install. It will take you to the Git site and you can install it freely. Okay, it is a small software which took download Git for Windows. So you can download it from any one of the sites. Git for Windows, from GitHub, or any location for ACM Git download. Okay, so you can download and simply you need to double click. It will be a MSM file. Once it is double clicked, it will be installed and it will take you to the Git. So here, if you type this Git, then it will take you to the Git shell. This is the Git command prompt. You can here execute all the command prompts. Just download and double click, enter. It will take you to the command prompt. Okay. To check it whether it is working properly or not, the command is git space hyphen version. Git space hyphen version. Git space hyphen version will let you know the commands. Please wait, I will. Yes. Okay. Git space hyphen version will let you know the version associated. The current version that I had installed is Git version 2.13.0. What you first need to do is you want to configure some parameters. Okay, you want to configure the following parameters. You want to configure the default username. You want to configure the default user email ID. You want to specify the default command prompt. Okay, you want to configure the following three parameters at first. So first parameter that you need to configure is default username. Okay, for that the command is git config hyphen global username is equal to your name. You can configure your name. So click config hyphen global username need to be given in a double quotation. That is the first command. I have already configured the Raman GS as my username. This is the username. Okay, Raman GS. So here git configure global username. So in terms of this configuration has been concerned, we can specify two types of configuration. One configuration applicable only on the local, okay, to a particular user only. Whereas this global is applicable to the entire Git. So here the configuration that we need to set is a global configuration. So if you specify hyphen local instance, for this particular user only, this configurations will be applicable. Since we are going to create multiple users, multiple projects, okay, so each and several multiple repositories, in order to make it the configuration applicable to all the projects, to all the repositories, to all the workspaces associated with all the users, we need to give this option. The configuration need to be done as a global. Please make it note. Two types of configuration. Okay, so as I already told in our yesterday's discussion itself, each and every user will have a separate area called as workspace. User Raman will have its own workspace. Similarly, if we have user Chandran, Chandran will have its own workspace, a separate workspace for Chandran. Okay, so here within that workspace, he will issue the command, and in his computer, it will be stored in a local repository. Each and every user will have a local repository. Okay, so these are all assumed to be computers. Within the computers, we have workspace and local repository, and everything has been stored in a central repository. Okay, so here, if you want to set a parameter for all the user Raman, user Chandran, up to any number of users working with the project, assume that these are all the users working with a particular project. So they want to do all the activity associated with the project instance. You want to set this global parameter, global username Raman. The administrator is then you want to, if you want to set a certain parameters specific to particular user instance, you want to log in into that user account and you want to set hyphen local. Okay. By default, we go for this global. Then similarly, git config hyphen global. So user dot email. Here user dot email. Here user dot name. I have forgotten user dot name, user dot email. Please make it global user dot name, user dot email. You want to specify the email. So any email, example Raman at gmail.com. This is my mail ID. The third parameter that you want to set is git config hyphen global push dot default. Simple. Okay, we were dealing with this push and pull command while we are dealing with the GitHub. How to make a entry from our local repository into the remote repository and how to retrieve the data from remote repository into local repository. For that, we'll be using this push and pull command. Then you want to set this parameter as a simple parameter. Okay, to view all those things, you need to issue git config hyphen list. It will list all the parameters. What are all the parameters that you have set? It will list all the parameters. So if you want, you can set the editor also. There are different types of editors. If you want to set a particular editor, git config hyphen global core editor, core dot editor. You need to set the editor. Okay, here we are setting Emacs as the editor. The default editor is VA editor. These are all the primary four parameters: username, user dot name, user dot email, and push.default and the core editor that you want to set. So after setting all those things, if you issue git config -hyphen list, it will list you all the needed information. Okay. Here, if you type git config -hyphen list, it will list you all the parameters. Okay, and find here the username that I had associated. Global username is through. The email that I have set is Raman Sriranga. Push.default is simple. Core editor is Emacs. So if you want to override, you can override, but this is the global parameters. Push simple. Core editor, you can set it as Emacs editor. If you don't set it, it will take you to the VA editor. Okay. The next thing that we are going to set is we need to create a repository. We need to create a repository for the user. You already people know the repository and workspace. Here is the user. This is the user's working area. We call it as a workspace. For all the thing that he is working with will be first moved into the intermediate. At the end, it moved into the repository. This is your local repository. This corresponds to intermediate staging area. Okay, stage area. So the thing will be moved into stage area. From the stage area, it will be moved into your local repository. So you want to create this workspace with respect to. So here, with respect to operating system, it will simply act as a directory. With respect to Git, it behaves as a workspace. Okay. So if you here specify ls here, so it seems as if in terms of operation ls command, it will list this as a directory. Okay, here I have created a lot of workspaces. Here central a dot git, central b dot git. So we created a workspace and a repository here. But in terms of operating system, it will treat it as a directory only. But in terms of Git, it will be treated as a workspace. The workspace only the user will be issuing this command. Okay. So every user will have its own workspace. Every user will have its own workspace. User 1 will have its own workspace. User 2 will have its own workspace and associated things. Please make a note. First, we want to create this workspace. In terms of this workspace has been concerned, here we can create two types of workspace. These are all interview related questions. Please make a note. One is we can create two types of workspace. One is bare. We call hereafter the workspace and bare and non-bare. Bare we call this as a bare and non-bare. Here, this bare is used for only storing purpose only. We can able to store the file, you can able to retrieve the share the file. We can only store the file, we can able to share the file. We can't do any changes on top of it. So if you want to store and if you want to share the file, if you want to do some modifications on top of the file, you want to use non-bare repository. Usually the repository, that is the global repository. So this is your global repository. So here we may call it as a repository. In terms of repository rather than workspace, it is more appropriate. if you specify repository can be of bare repository, non-bare repository. So here the local repository, the user want to use this repository for storing the files and for sharing the files to other user and to do modification on top of the file. Therefore, this repository need to be configured as a non-bare repository. Whereas the global repository, it is meant for only sharing only. It is used for store the files and share the files. All other user, if they want to download the file into, for example, so this user is having a file1.java, the user u1, the another user u2. If you want to access the file, what you need to do? So the file1.java, here if it is on this global repository, this user can retrieve the file into the local repository. That is, the user 2 can retrieve the file1.java into its local repository, and from the local repository it needs to bring into the workspace, and he can do any modifications. Here too he can do any modification in its local repository itself. So usually in terms of the global repository is configured as a bare, the local repository is configured as a non-bare. Also because global purpose is used for storing and sharing. It won't permit you to do modification on a global repository. If you want to do any modification, that particular file need to bring into this local repository, and it want to do modifications here, and it need to be sent back to the global repository. Please make a note. So let me create a repository. So command to create the repository is you want to create a directory. That's all. Make directory batch1 dot git. Make directory batch1 dot git. In order to differentiate this from a normal directory, we are giving its extension name dot git. So after create, now it is simply act as a directory. If you specify ls, it will simply act as a directory. You can find this batch1.git is a simple directory, batch1.git. Here what we need to do, you want to configure this as a repository. So for configuring this as a repository, you want to move to this particular folder, batch1.git, move to batch1.git. Okay, now if you type present working directory, you can find yours under C users Raman GS and bat1.git. Here you want to make it as a repository. So what repository that you need to go for? You need to create a repository as a non-bare repository. For creating a non-bare repository, the command is git init. Git init. If you want to create it bare, -bare. Okay, so if you while creating a global repository, you want to create it as a bare repository. Here, since we are going to do modifications here, you want to make it as a non-bare repository. Git init. Now the repository has been initialized as a non-bare repository. Okay. Similarly, you can create any number of repository. You create a repository, make directory. Let me create a central repository appropriately. Okay. central rep.git to create a central repository. So the central repository can be configured as a bar or non-bar. Okay, move to the central repository. cd central repository.git. Here you can invoke this init command, git init. Okay, so here it is initialized as a bar. This is the way by which you can create a normal repository and a bar and unbar repository. Now what we did here is we have created a repository as a central repository. The name of the repository is central rep.git, and if we have made it as a bar, and you have created another repository. Another name of the repository is batch1.git. So this repository is a non-bar repository. This is the way by which you need to create a repository. So if you want to create a local repository, it is mandatory that for user Raman repo. Let me create a repo called the Raman repo. So this is associated with all local, associated with only Raman. What you need is you want to have a central repository. So to create a new local repository, it need to be created based upon a central repository only. For that, the command that we need to use is git clone. Git clone the source and the target repository. The source repository and the target repository. The source repository need to be a central repository. The target repository is the local repository. So if you want to create a repository for Raman, okay, the command is you want to specify the following: git clone. You want to specify the full path. Okay, this is your full path. The full path of our central repository is under C colon. You will be okay. So the name of the central repository. You want to specify full path central rep.git. The local repository is Raman rep. Okay. Or you can specify simply Raman workspace to make it a more simple Raman workspace. This is the command git clone central rep.git Raman workspace. Anything, it is your choice, Raman workspace or Raman repository, anything. Look into the present working directory. You are currently in central rep.git, therefore you want to move back cd dot dot. Now check it. So to clone it, you should come out of it. Okay, you are now with batch1.git. Okay, so within batch, you want to be in our current. This is your default path. C colon users Raman GS. Okay, here only you want to create this central. From the central, you want to create a local repository. Here, let me create make directory central. Let me take it bank central bank dot or central repository one.git. Okay, so cd central repository one.git. Now we are in the repository. By moving into the repository, you want to create it as a bar. Okay, git init --bar. We are making this repository as a bar repository. Yes. Now git you want to move back to create a local repository. Now you are under C colon present working directory. Now you are under C colon users and Raman GS. From this we can create a local repository. Git clone. The command is git clone. You want to specify the repository. Okay, under C, under users, you have the username Raman GS. Okay, under which you are having central rep1.git. This is your source. Okay, under C colon user Raman GS, you have central rep1.git. Now the workspace that you are going to create is RAM workspace. Now we have created a workspace by name RAM. Okay, that workspace is a empty workspace. Okay, here we can call the repository in workspace to be upset. It is a local repository. So while you are creating a repository by cloning from a central repository, what happens here is if you have any file on the central repository, let me imagine we have created a central initially central one central repository one.git. So being it is empty, we have created this workspace. RAM ws is the workspace. When you issue this clone command, what are all the files present here? We will create a workspace by the name specified, and all the files associated with the central rep.git will be copied here. So here it is mentioning that you have cloned a empty repository. Since we does not have any file here, it shows this particular information. If not, if it contain example 1.java and 2.java, two files, and when you create automatically here this local workspace or local repository also will be created and copied with the following two files. So please make a note. So with respect to this Raman, okay, with respect to this Raman repository, then the source is the central. All the activity associated with the Raman need to be moved into the central repository. This is the way by which you create the central repository. Being it is meant for only storing and sharing, I had to make it as a back. This one corresponds to non-back. Since I am going to do modifications also here, I am going to make it as a non-back. So the git clone is the command to create a local repository from a central repository. While creating a local repository, all the files that is present in the central repository will be created here. So now let me move and create something. Both the things are empty. Both repositories are empty now. Now the workspace created is Raman WS. Let me check in. Currently, present working directory. If you make a check, you can find you have Raman workspace. Okay. Please make a note. If you move to the repository, central repository one.git and type ls, it is empty. Okay, these are all some system level files. Only in central repository.git, we contain a configuration description here. These are all some system files. It is empty. Now you are under ROM workspace. If you type ls, you can find it is nothing. You simply create a file. Okay, you simply create a file. Let me create a file. Text. Let me make it as file one dot. Let me create a normal file, text file. Ls you can find the file is created under the Raman workspace. So if you get this status, to get the status, git status, you can find you have one file that is created in your local. What we are doing here, now we are connected with this Raman's workspace, RAM workspace, and we have created a file one here. This is your global, that is your central repository, central rep one. It does not contain any. Here we are working with the following. One, we created a file. When you issue this git status, you can find here you have an untracked file. What is untracked file? If you have file one here and the presence of the file is not mentioned in central repository, yesterday we have discussed about this. This file is said to be untracked file. So how to add the file? How to make this add the file? First, if you want the file to move on to the central repository, let me type something on the file. Echo. Let me specify line 1, the first line greater than the file name, file 1. I have added a new line to the file. Okay. So if you specify once again git status, you can find you have file 1. You can file 1. The file is untracked file. So first you want to move the file into the staging area. For moving the file into the staging area, the command is git space add, git space add dot, git space add dot. Git space add space dot. So now the file, if you get the status of the file, git status, now the file will be moved into the, now you can find the file status. It was shown it was untracked file. And now the status was moved from untracked file. What happened here is the file currently is in a staged area. From this location, the file is moved into the intermediate area called as stage area. To move the file, the command is git add file name or git add dot means all the file will be moved into the stage area. So from the stage area, if it moved to the central repository, the command is git commit. While performing this commit, you want to give a commit message. For each and every, you want to give a commit message. Okay, the command is now the git status. Will show you the status. Now the command, you have a new file git. Please make a note of all those commands. Git commit. You want to specify a commit message -m line 1 added to file 1. This is the message that will be recorded. Line 1 added to file 1. Okay, you want to set an appropriate message each and every time that you are committing. -m stands for message. Git commit -m, the message is line 1 added to file 1. This is the information. Now you can find the git status. Here your branch is based on the origin master. Okay, so now the file status is perfect. Now we have file present in both Raman workspace and the central repository. We can get the log here. If you specify git log, it will show you all the log information associated. Now you can find you have a commit ID. The commit info message is line 1 added to the file. By the way, for each and every commit, you can add a specific messages by which you can able to retrieve the information. Okay, so being it is almost time, I want to start the batch at 7:15. So I will stop here and we can continue. Our next class will be on Monday. We will be having classes on Monday to Friday only. If we have class, I will inform to you on Saturday. Okay, so I will share you the recordings of yesterday and today within today afternoon. Already I am flooring with calls. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will be meeting on Monday morning 6:30. Thank you.